on that, the reason and the challenges that confront those reasons at times, what's been your most difficult period here as executive director?
There's no question about that.
What?
August 29th, 2005, and the years that came after. That was Hurricane Katrina. Certainly there were challenges before that, the normal challenges of any small not-for-profit organization. The challenges of finance and finance.
Yeah.
But Hurricane Katrina was, the unimaginable moment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
For this community that was our community, and for this organization which nearly lost everything, really. So to come to a moment when everything you've relied on about the capacity of your organization, the facilities that allow you to provide your service,
Right.
the community that needs certain things from you, all of that was erased in a day because the community had changed. It needed different things from us than what it had in the past. And if you're going to be a dynamic organization, you can't ignore that. You have to live into that and be responsive in order to be authentic. So we had to pay attention to that, and we had to not change our mission, but change the way that we expressed it and approached it.
Okay.
We had to figure out how to serve without any buildings. We, lost so many staff to that storm because of their own displacement. And so we had a huge transition and turnover in staff, so we had to rebuild that sense of community as well. We had to pretty much reimagine everything from that day on. And that is nothing that any class or any experience can prepare you for.
So how did you stay motivated and positive, not only in your role as executive director here, your role in leadership here, but also as a resident of the coast?
Right.
I mean, so you're dealing with it in so many different aspects. That Katrina's obviously the worst natural disaster to ever hit America. So how did you stay motivated in both roles?
It was very difficult.
I'm sure.
I can't really gloss over that. It was very difficult. Certainly that's a time when you cling to your faith.
Yes.
And to a belief that maybe, even if I as a human being can't see a way through, a trust that God is making that way through. So that was foundational for me and for many others. But I think the key was surrounding myself with the right people.
Okay.
And not being too proud to reach out to those people.
Yes.
We were, all of us here, so blessed during that time, because that was a time when the whole nation reached out.
Right. That's right.
In such profound, powerful ways. And I was certainly the beneficiary of that personally and professionally. Phone conversations, visits, prayers, giving, of course, to Back Bay that helped us come back from all of that. But, and on the personal side, of course, when you see an institution that you love and so identify with destroyed, that shakes you to your core.
Yes.
But like everyone on the coast, it was also, as you remember, dealing also with everything you knew and recognized and loved about the Gulf Coast was irrevocably changed.
Right. Yes,
Landmarks.
Yes.
You couldn't tell where you were half the time.
That's right.
The homes of people you loved, the churches that you worshipped in, the businesses that you frequented, the homes that gave you refuge at night. My home was personally fine. Very little damage, so that was a blessing for me and for Back Bay, because we kind of ran out of operations out of my house for a while. But still, to make the drive in each day to the mission, even when we didn't have buildings, to meet with insurance agents and
Yes.
FEMA people and board members who came in to help with the assessment. I mean, everywhere you went, it was discombobulating because the world had changed. This world had changed. So, what I remember about that time is, one of the things that got people through in the beginning for months was telling the story. Every time, the first time you saw anyone, the first thing you did after a hug was to tell your story, your Katrina story.
We all had them.
We all had them.
Yeah.
And it was so important to tell them and to cry the tears if you needed to, and to shake your heads at the, just the awfulness of all of it.
Yeah.
So, I just think, how did I get through that time? Faith and friends and colleagues and, just a willingness to be vulnerable and get through it an hour at a time.
Yeah. It was a difficult stretch. It was a difficult time.
Would never want to do that again.
What does that take out of a person? I mean, going through that, what does that take out of a person from just the ministry side?
Help me with
Well,
that question.
the ministry side of, you're still, though you're living through this and going through this, you're still in service where you're having to give. Give.
Right.
And so, I guess that goes back to what you were saying as far as sharing and hugging and talking about it. That maybe pours back into you.
Yeah, but I get the part of your question. I mean, yes, one of the strains for me of that time was that while I was experiencing that in my own individual way, and it was grief for every one of us here.
Right.
We just all experienced it differently. At the same time, I had to be the strong leader. I had to be the person reassuring others.
Right.
Whether that was staff or board members or people who loved us all across the country, or people who looked to us here for desperate need to be served. I had to offer encouragement and a show of strength and confidence and trust, and that was an interesting tension at times. But there were always those that I could be honest with and say, if I was having a crisis of confidence, which I certainly did, there were those that I could say that to. And there had to be those. I couldn't have that face and that facade on all the time.
That's right.
Because, frankly, any of us who were in this region at that time and lived through it, we all surely had many moments when we wondered, how in the world
Yes, we did.
are we going to come through this?
Yes, we did.
And what will it look like when we get to the other side?
That's right. You're right.
And nobody knew the answers to that.
No.
Nobody did. So, yes.